Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time and joining this webinar. We hope you're staying home, you're staying safe. It's my privilege and honor today to host this webinar with two industry thought leaders and change agents. I would first like to introduce Tim Heffron, Senior Vice President, Human Resources and Chief Information Officer of Meritor. As most of you would know, Meritor is a Fortune 500 company and a leading global supplier of drivetrain, mobility, braking, and aftermarket solutions for commercial vehicles and industrial markets. Tim is an industry thought leader, a transformational agent, and most importantly, a firm advocate of digital transformation. As CIO at Meritor, he is responsible to drive the innovation and transformational projects. He is also a member of many leading forums and advisory boards, such as Oracle CIO Advisory Board, Hackett Group of Advisory Council, to name a few. It will be a great learning for all of us on this webinar to learn from Tim and his rich experience. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ravi. Pleasure to be here today to share some of our experience.
Great. We also have Ravi Reddy from Sunera. Ravi is the CEO, the master strategist, and visionary with a keen eye for innovation. He has been responsible to drive many large IT transformational projects across industries. He is famously known for his work titled Transforming CIO into Chief Innovation Officer. Ravi has helped over 200 CIOs migrate to cloud. He is also the architect of zero-cost cloud migration in the enterprise world. Ravi has been leading a lot of transformational projects and helping many CIOs across the globe, not just in cloud migration, but across all the facets and levers of digital transformation. Ravi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Raghav. Thanks, Tim, for taking time to share your experience as well. Thank you.
So, Tim, let's get started with you. So before we get started, I know we are all hearing about this COVID-19 situation across the globe. So tell us a little bit about what's happening at Meritor and how are you dealing with these challenges associated with this COVID-19?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned right at the outset, Raghav, I have kind of a unique role. So in addition to serving as the CIO, which I've been in that capacity here at Meritor for approximately 9 years, I also have global responsibility for HR and have had that responsibility for just about 7 years. And thus far, the impact to us has been quite significant. If you go back to about the end of March, as a result of really a combination of various either country or state, stay at home, rest in place orders, we saw our revenue start to decline pretty significantly. A lot of our global customers, which on the manufacturing side of our business are primarily the truck OEMs. We have some military business on that side, but a lot of the truck OEMs, we literally saw them kind of one by one start to shut down in Europe, India, South America, the US, et cetera, for periods of a couple weeks all the way out to 6 weeks or so. So we had to take some pretty dramatic actions quite quickly, just in terms of the cost side. Kind of the one bright spot for me personally has been that our technology environment thus far has held up beautifully, given the significant increase in remote connectivity required to support the global workforce, which has allowed me the opportunity to focus a lot more of my time over the last month and a half or so on the HR side. So still a lot of tough sledding ahead of us. All of us, worldwide are trying to figure out, is it a V shape? Is it a U shape? Is it an L shape recovery? No one has the answers to that yet. I think what we're trying to do is really plan for the worst and hope for the best at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we hope we'll all come out of this soon. So Ravi, I know you have offices across different continents and different countries. How is the situation at your end for the COVID-19?
Yeah, no, I think like Tim mentioned, I mean, the situation definitely is, even before COVID, I used to always say that one thing that is certain is uncertainty. And I think COVID, that uncertainty has only amplified. It's even more uncertain than it used to be before we got into COVID. But as a result of it, I think, as I keep saying, the tough gets going when the going gets tough. So as an organization, since we have always been born, the fortunate part is SuneraTech is a born in a cloud company. We've always been embracer of digital. So for us, as an organization, in terms of ensuring that there's a continuity of work, I think we've been very fortunate that there's been zero impact in our ability to deliver what we've been promising our customers. But otherwise, given the situation, we are seeing that cloud transformation is on steroids, or at least in the last 3 months.
Wow, yeah, that's good to know. All right, so we will now jump into the topic. So Tim, I would start with you. Can you describe us the key aspects of Meritor's journey to the cloud, how it has been?
Sure. As I was kind of reflecting on this question and how to best describe our journey, I really kind of centered on some points, some specific points that I thought were really helpful to us, either in terms of enablers or just just us learning a lot that ultimately contributed in a positive way to our cloud journey. So I'll go back all the way to about 2007, when the organization, at that time, there were a number of company-owned data centers scattered about, and those were consolidated at the time with EDS just prior to the HP acquisition. And so when you go through an exercise like that, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about what kind of documentation you have, what kind of documentation you don't have. Often it's an impetus to retire some outdated technology and things of that nature. Once that was finished, we started over time, and this was several years, but we really focused on leveraging virtualization technology to really try to shrink that physical data center footprint. And then, we started to use some point SaaS solutions, real simple stuff. A lot of people on this call, I'm sure, are familiar with Concur, T&E. Within our aftermarket business, we used a PROS pricing optimization application. And then we started to get a little bit braver, started to dip into some more enterprise caliber SaaS solutions like Office 365, Salesforce. We also, in the 2014 timeframe, we moved our data center again. We moved from out of HP and into AT&T at the time. And it was AT&T for about a year into that transition, and then that business was purchased by IBM. In 2015, we went through a pretty significant project for us, about a 3-year duration, where we took a number of disparate ERP instances. Majority of them were Oracle instances, although some were quite dated, as well as some non-Oracle technology. And we really consolidated and upgraded those to two global instances, one that lined up with our manufacturing side of our business and one the aftermarket side of our business. We then did a project with our PLM application, our Global Product Lifecycle application. We use Windchill here at Meritor. And what we did in connection with a pretty major application upgrade, we also moved it out of the traditional data center and into the AWS cloud. So that was a pretty significant move for us. Along the way, we also took a hard look at our network architecture. If you go back in time, what we had was a pretty traditional MPLS network. And before we started to see a lot more internet-based traffic, if somebody at a site, a lot of our different sites wanted to connect to the internet, they would actually first have to traverse through the wide area network, the more expensive circuits, and get out to some type of a regional hub in order to hop out to the internet. So what we did is we implemented what we referred to as a hybrid network. We still have the MPLS in place that primarily serves the on-premise apps, if you will. But most of our sites have direct internet connections, so that if you're going to the internet, you can go straight out. You don't have multiple hops, and you don't have to ride over the MPLS to facilitate that. And really, after all of what I've just described, we felt we were ready to take the next big step. And so in 2019, we embarked on a project to really move out of the traditional data center, which was with IBM, and into the Oracle's OCI cloud infrastructure environment. So that was a major project throughout 2019 for us. We finalized the move in November of 2019. We do maintain a very small colo environment, principally to house just a handful of legacy applications that we didn't have time to deal with, as well as some things associated with compliance, principally some ITAR related activity, and that's in an Equinix data center.
Wow, that's quite a transformational journey. I'll say, Tim. That's great. So Ravi, I know you work with a lot of manufacturing majors, and not just manufacturing, you work with a lot of large enterprises. So how do you see this whole cloud adoption picking up now?
Well, whether manufacturing or whether you take CPG or oil and gas, right? Like I mentioned, we have to recognize that, uncertainty is here for a long time to stay. Right, in this uncertain world, and it's very tough to be a CEO or a CIO or any CXO, where you only have left with two choices as a CEO: either you disrupt or you get disrupted. Right. So, as a CIO and technology leaders, right, we have to understand, what disruptions and why innovation are happening in our industry, in our business. So wherever the CXOs are able to define the why, and they are able to start the transformation journey starting with the why, I'm seeing that there's a lot of support that they're able to rally behind them. And when they get stuck with the what, which is when you have a cost pressure and you're moving to cloud just because of a cost pressure, then you don't have a larger purpose of why you're doing this, then you do lose momentum at some point in time, because it is a complex journey. Moving into cloud, what Tim has been through, it is because of his vision and why, his purpose of why they're doing it was a lot more helpful in bringing the collaboration required from all entities, whether it is business, IT, or partners. So I think, if you look at why disruptions are happening, and we are seeing that adoption is at a varied level in different businesses. And then that variation is based on three factors, or three types of industries. There are certain industries which are getting disrupted because it is innovation-led. So the migration to cloud is innovation-led, wherein it is expected that there's a competition that is driving differentiation. So you have to bring differentiation before the competition takes over your market. So quite a few CIOs I see are setting up innovation lab to harness the new digital capabilities available natively on cloud, whether it is Industry 4.0, whether it is blockchain, whether it is in some cases IoT or 5G led. So a lot of these capabilities are natively available on cloud, and businesses want to leverage that because the competition is delivering a lot more capabilities than you are. So the velocity of innovation. And Meritor is a great example of that, which is innovation-led in one dimension, because Industry 4.0 has been a significant. The second set of customers I'm seeing shifting to cloud are business model-led, where the business models are shifting. right? In many industries, business models are fundamentally shifting, and it is expected to change very rapidly, right? So for example, the whole world is becoming asset light. And whichever business is becoming more and more asset light, while consumers already embraced asset light culture through over last decade, all of us have seen app marketplaces, whether it is Google or whether it is Apple and many others. You are used to buying Netflix subscription, Dropbox, Ubers. Enterprises are now becoming part of that bandwagon, right? The enterprises are expecting software to be available in a consumption model. So this consumerization is driving asset life culture, right? As a result of it, enterprises are realizing that cloud is not just a data center modernization, it is the beginning or the foundation for asset light culture. So embrace the consumerization of next generation technology. And that is fast becoming norm for most of the businesses where the business models are getting disrupted. And one would notice, right, that today businesses or users don't have the appetite for long wait time, right? 6 months to a year of project timelines. The business users expect 90 days, idea to implementation culture. And I've seen a lot of that happening even in oil and gas. The third set of customers who are moving to cloud are where it is because of driven by consolidation or divestitures, acquisitions, where there is a significant pressure to drive costs down. They want to divest the businesses that are not doing well and bringing operational efficiency. So one of these three, so the cloud adoption is driven by the either consolidations, innovation-led or business model-led. So as a result, the sense of urgency that I see now has significantly increased over the last 3 months because the problem is now very unique for CIOs. On one end, CIOs are expected to find smarter ways to save money, conserve cash, which wasn't before COVID. It wasn't as urgent. Today, post-COVID situation, CIOs are expected to be smarter in how they save money. And then on the other hand, continue and enable the business to align with the business model shift or innovation. So the only way one can achieve both without throwing the baby with the bathwater, with all the ideas that you've built, is by adopting and getting comfortable with the cloud platform and services. So I'm seeing that realization that at this juncture, there is, as I mentioned earlier, cloud adoption is on steroids now, Raghav.
Wow. Thanks, Ravi. That was really very insightful. We have a lot of CIOs on our webinar today, and I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways from that. Thank you. So Tim, coming back to you, we heard how innovative Meritor is, at every step of innovation and transformation. I would like to understand what were the key business imperatives that compelled you to migrate to cloud.
Well, I think it's important to underscore here, Raghav, that for us anyway, along our entire journey, we never really approached the business relative to any of these specific initiatives talking technology first. We always focused on, what are the business imperatives that are really requiring some level of transformation or change. So similar to some of the things that Ravi was touching on. Clearly, one of them is cost. That's kind of a table stakes. Everybody's typically interested in driving your costs down. There's another bucket that's really kind of a combination of agility, flexibility, operational efficiency. We've done a number of acquisitions, for example, over the last couple of years. And, for anyone on that's participating today, that I'm sure some of you will remember, that when I think about going back not too long ago, if I wanted to spin up a a new test environment, for example, to help enable something associated with an acquisition. Sometimes you'd have to put in an order, and you might not get that fulfilled for weeks. Now the reality is that that should be a same day or within minutes or hours type of an activity. Scalability, again, in the context of an acquisition or other perhaps testing in the engineering area where you're using massive volumes of data and you need to quickly scale from a computational standpoint. Security, and this one may not be intuitive. Some people, when they think about cloud, there all of a sudden there's a lot of concern about security, and you certainly have to be mindful in terms of what you're doing and how you're doing it. But what we have found through our journey is the pure hosting cost, if you will, gets driven down to such a level that you're able to take some of the savings there and make sure that you invest properly in security capabilities. And we have a board of directors that's quite interested in security. We have annual meetings, deep dives. In fact, the last couple of years, we've had a 2-hour deep dive with our audit committee focused entirely on cybersecurity, with updates along the way through other meetings throughout the year. So we have quite a detailed roadmap with various initiatives planned to continue to elevate our maturity capabilities in that space. So having the wherewithal to, in essence, self-fund a good portion of that journey becomes quite valuable to us. And then from a business model standpoint, I mentioned that in addition to the manufacturing side of our business, we also have an aftermarket parts replacement business. And when you look at the technology ecosystem that's required to support that, it's quite a bit different. It's a lot of B2C characteristics associated with it. We have an e-commerce platform. We have a much more robust warehouse management, kind of distribution management type platform than is necessary in a manufacturing environment. We also have an application, for instance, that manages the cores associated with remanufacturing. So, and as I mentioned previously, we have our ERP instance. One of our ERP instances is really aligned to our aftermarket business because the ecosystem is quite a bit different from the manufacturing side. So those are some of the major things that come to my mind, Raghav, relative to kind of the key business imperatives.
Wow, that's great. That was very helpful, Tim. So, one key takeaway that stands out is, security is very, very important, and we need to make sure that we have special focus there. Thanks, Tim. Ravi, so coming back to you, I know you talk to so many CIOs, every day, and you deal with a lot of them. So what do you think is the single biggest concern, Ravi, when it comes to moving to cloud?
Well, it's a tough question, because the concerns are many to move to cloud. But if you ask me, single biggest concern, I think the CIO's ability to create a sense of urgency and rallying the support towards the cloud initiative, I would say, as the single biggest concerns that CIOs have, because if you kind of peel the onion in terms of why folks are not able to create that sense of urgency and rally the support behind that is, number one, I see some part of it is, largely leadership driven, and some part of it is the rest of the organization. If you look at leadership, I think the clarity around innovation vision, because, the innovation, digital transformation has been loosely used in the past. And hence defining this time around how important it is, given all those business dynamics, that without innovation, we will get disrupted, that sense of urgency. So if innovation vision, that North Star is defined clearly, then you can create a sense of urgency within the team, fundamentally to change that fixed mindset that I see that still a lot of CIOs are sitting with the leadership and the rest of the IT organization that has a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset. And it is a lot of ways is our own doing, right? We were always measuring our organization based on the service level, not based on the, the changing from the soldier mindset to an artist mindset, and moving from a waterfall way of working to agile way of working. So if we can bring that sense of urgency and understand fundamentally that, we are the creators of the fixed mindset with soldiers behavior, where artistic abilities have slowly deteriorated from our organizations, bringing that back and avoiding this coming over the resistance due to risk of unknown, because and not having a clarity what lies in future for each of the team members, right? And the third aspect is the understanding of the cloud is not very deeply rooted. I think there's significant investment that one has to make in the understanding of the cloud, because cloud has various level of capabilities. So hence, once you understand, and then you can align the organization to the cloud transformation. So I would say that framework that we keep using in terms of creating a sense of urgency and rallying the support, Raghav.
Wow. So I'm sure a lot of us on the webinar would relate to what you said, Ravi. Thank you. Thanks for that. Tim, coming back to you, one thing that most of the CIOs and most of the folks on the webinar today are keen to learn is, what are some of the key lessons that you have learned through your journey on migrating to cloud?
Yeah, no, it really kind of hinges on where you are in the journey. But a few of the things that I thought about in relative to this question, we got to a point where it really made sense to use a cloud exchange provider. It's certainly something that you can manage yourself, but for us, we found that it was a lot more effective to buy that as a capability rather than try to do it ourselves. So as I mentioned, we do have a small colo with Equinix. We also use them as our cloud exchange provider. Obviously there's a number of options in that space. One other thing is often through this journey, there's this transition from, relying on in-house team members. And as you move various workloads to the cloud, you do become more reliant on an ecosystem of partners. And it is really important as you're going through that process to really do a detailed roles and responsibilities matrix and truly understand, who's doing what, particularly your own people as workloads are shifting and moving, because you risk potentially, not identifying a pretty important activities that could fall through the cracks if you haven't accounted for those properly and made sure that somebody is tagged with performing those important functions. One other thing that I thought folks might find kind of interesting, some older applications that maybe aren't fully compatible with, let's say, at an OS level, when you think about trying to move them to the cloud. It is possible to do so. Ravi kind of referred to the term artist, and I think this is where some of this is half art, half science, and there are ways that you can lift and shift some of these types of applications and get them into a cloud environment and be able to take advantage of aspects of that. having really detailed migration plans and testing. I mean, it's something that should resonate with everybody. But our journey to the cloud infrastructure out of IBM and into the Oracle OCI environment, that took about 7 months, give or take. We did it in about 6 or 7 discrete waves. And you really have to put a lot of planning into the various application dependencies and other dependencies when you're thinking about organizing what's going to go in each wave. Because during that period where you're kind of straddling old environment and new environment, and everything has to continue to work seamlessly, you want to try to do your best to minimize the amount of complexity that you're trying to manage in that regard, and how you choose to sequence the applications in terms of the migration kind of feeds into how complex or ultimately that's going to be. The other observation I've had is, I did touch on the ability to self-fund, various security tool sets that can help advance your security maturity. The one thing we've learned in connection with that is, that's great, but oftentimes it takes a fair amount of time to operationalize these tools. There's quite a bit of tuning and configuration that's required to optimize everything and have it not be disruptive, actually have it provide the value and the outputs and the protections that you're looking for. So you have to be make sure that you've allocated a fairly significant amount of time to accommodate the learning that comes with that and the different tuning associated with it.
Wow, that was, thanks, Tim. That was very insightful. I'm sure a lot of us have so many things to take away from that. So Ravi, the next question comes from my personal experience. Every time we talk to CIOs, we talk to CXOs, and we talk about, zero cost cloud migration, they find it very hard to believe it. And they're like, dude, are you serious? You're talking about zero cost migration to cloud. So can you tell us how Sunera is actually making this into a reality?
Well, if I tell the secret, then I don't know what to do with you after that. But, well, as CIO, right? I mean, as a CIO, one doesn't believe that, right? We can move to cloud with zero cost. But we have designed a framework that has made it possible, and we've done this repeatedly now. I'll walk you through how that can be done, right? Some of our customers have embraced it and they've seen through the whole journey. And fundamentally, there are 2 models. One is, we call that data center modernization model with zero cost upfront. Second is applications lift and shift. You don't have to be leveraging ZCCM or zero cost cloud migration for entire data center. You can also do that for certain applications lift and shift. And if you're doing data center modernization, the zero cost model works because we have identified through our experience, through the tools that we have built, we are able to drive efficiencies in 3 areas. Infrastructure optimization, like Tim mentioned, there's significant opportunity to eliminate the unutilized infrastructure bandwidth and bring in efficiency. So most businesses size themselves up for peak capacity, and peak capacity generally is required for less than 20% of the year. So there is and that's one area, right? There are significant other things that we have mastered in the way we can bring efficiencies in your infrastructure cost. The second is the cost of applications. There are significant opportunity in rationalizing the applications and modernizing them. You don't have to put old wine in new bottle. There is opportunity to rationalize, and again, Tim also alluded to that you can bring in artistic culture with some science to really to rationalize, to see if you really want to lift it and move it to cloud. So there is a significant opportunity that in the second layer. And the biggest area of opportunity is the services piece. And this is where a lot of CIOs don't see this coming, that if they traditionally are used to working in certain way, there's significant cannibalization that happens in the traditional thinking, because in cloud, the way you manage it is significantly efficient than traditional data center management. So there's significant cost sitting in the way you manage your infrastructure, network, security. It's a lot more efficient in the way you do that in cloud. So when you stack up these 3 layers, you're at least looking at a 50%, if not more, at least a 50% savings versus how you do today. And then when we see that, so we are able to put our skin in the game by saying, if you are migrating and modernizing your data center, SuneraTech invests in ensuring that you're not paying for your data center or to your third-party hosting provider, because it's very difficult for CIOs to go to the CFO or to the board asking for more money, especially in today's situation, for migrating to cloud. We empathize with that. I think that's what is the core of the way we are approaching. We empathize with that situation, and we say, we will invest upfront, we will migrate you, whether it takes 6 months, 9 months, or a year in some cases. And then because you're realizing that savings, you're paying 5 to 10% of that savings towards fund for the investment that we have done as part of this migration. So in a sense, CIOs are still able to realize between 30 to 40% savings when netted out from the migration cost. So that is a zero cost cloud migration for data center. And that exact model, we have applied it whether you're migrating databases or you're migrating your applications. The zero cost cloud migration model can apply to both, right? So we bring 3 unique things as a zero cost cloud migration. So why we can do and why we believe a lot of other cloud providers are not yet there to deliver that. Fundamentally, we have 15, 20 years of experience in both infrastructure and application. So we understand both sides of the coin very well. Not just the infra, not just the apps, but both equally well. We've set up high performance computing, supercomputing data centers with 40,000 clusters being set up, farm being set up for large high performance computing use cases. So for us to really understand both we have a deep understanding of both. So we are a complete cloud capable partner, right? So that's number one. Having a complete cloud capability enables you to tell the customer how to do and what to do. Number 2, we have the ability to invest, right? We have the ability to invest during the time you are paying for your existing data center, right? So hence we are putting our skin in the game. The third is we bring significant automation in the way we drive to migrate the applications to cloud. And we have a capability called cloud economics, which basically ensures that the businesses who don't have the deep insight on how to manage things in cloud, we bring cloud economics, which basically ensures the continuous optimization of your cloud consumption. If you go do a secondary research, 50% of generation 1 cloud customers generally would give you maybe a 5, 6 out of 10 in terms of their experience in cloud. And that is largely because of the unprecedented and unexpected cost that they didn't budget for. So cloud economics is a very important part to make sure that after you go live, you're successful because you're not seeing skyrocketing cost in your cloud. So those are the 3. Hence, we are able to, through ZCCM, we are able to guarantee success and guarantee savings by putting our skin. So I would expect, I would invite all of you to kind of write to zccm@suneratech.com. Maybe one of our experts can understand your scenario and structure a ZCCM tailored for you, right? So hope that helped, Raghav. I think any questions around that?
Yeah, Ravi, it was really helpful, and thanks to you. Now we have the method to the madness of how we are promising ZCCM to all the CIOs. I would love to go on, and I have so many questions, but I already see questions coming in the Q&A section. So before we move on to questions, Ravi and Tim, real quick, I want to ask one last question to both of you, and then we'll go to the question and answer section. So Tim, if you have to advise our CIOs when they are selecting a partner to migrate to cloud, what would your suggestion or recommendation be?
I think Ravi touched on some of these things, Raghav, but I mean, clearly demonstrated capability, very high quality technical resources, and established partner ecosystems. I think flexibility in several regards, being able to straddle that kind of art and science line, flexibility in terms of the operating model. That there needs to be successful, what we found, there has to be this willingness to work in a very collaborative fashion, to have a shared governance. Because when you think about moving all of your apps to the cloud, in the case of our partnership with SuneraTech, the Meritor team had extensive amount of knowledge regarding our applications. Clearly, as Ravi outlined, SuneraTech has a very great methodology, but you really have to mix the two together in an optimal way in order to ultimately figure out how to best proceed and to be successful. And then the final leg of flexibility is related to the contracting, which helps facilitate that migrating to the cloud with really no upfront migration cost. I would say that we've had a great experience working with SuneraTech and Oracle as well. SuneraTech served as the lead partner relative to our cloud data center migration, and presently really serves as the primary support partner in our steady state environment within the OCI platform. I mentioned earlier that we finished our migration to the cloud data center in November of 2019. Since that time, I can say that I've been extremely pleased with the level of cost reduction. I mentioned that we were able to self-fund some additional security capabilities, still deliver some cost savings to the business, some meaningful cost savings to the business. We've also been really pleased with the overall stability of the platform, as well as the performance, down to some end user type of experience, as well as some really significant improvements in performance relative to some of our big long-running batch jobs. We've seen some quite incredible improvements there. And then for any of those of you on the call that might be curious, why did Meritor, given all of the options out there, select OCI as the right platform for us? I thought it might be helpful to just mention, although we don't have everything in our environment, is certainly not red stack. That would be pretty unusual these days. But we have made very significant investments in Oracle applications. I mentioned EBS. I mean, we also use HFM, a variety of the supply chain tools with Demantra, ASCP, OTM. We also use PeopleSoft for global HR, just as some major examples. So we feel like being on this platform gives us some great runway and some nice enablers from a strategic, technical, and financial standpoint when we think about the roadmap of the future for these applications.
Wow. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the insightful answer. Ravi, so I have a very interesting question. This is not just mine, but it's on the popular demand. I'm asking you this question. Is there a magic wand or a success framework that will ensure 100% successful migration to the cloud?
Well, it is. So first of all, Tim, it's been great partnering with Meritor. Thank you for all the support that you and the rest of the leadership team has extended. We wouldn't be successful without the kind of partnership you have ensured that, stayed with us throughout. And, thanks for all the nice words. Now, magic wand, Well, I would say, this is something we've been practicing very religiously over the last couple of years is before disruption disrupts you, I think we should start disrupting ourselves. I think disrupt yourself, right? It would be because it's very, very, in an uncertain world, if we don't kind of disrupt the way we think, our mindset, it's difficult to be passionate about the vision. So I think disrupt yourself, because, look at, if you find, what's the magic wand if you were ready, if you and your team is ready to disrupt yourself in the way you do things in the past, find a true next generation partner, right? Who is aligned to your North Star that can enable you to innovate and stay ahead of disruption. Not ahead, not a partner who is behind you, but somebody who understands your purpose of innovation and stay ahead of your disruption, rather than constantly worried about cannibalization of existing revenue. Because we see that a lot. So partner who has complete cloud capability to guide you in the entire journey and empathizes with innovation, and partner who can put their skin in the game, right? I think these are probably the characteristics I would say that I've seen leadership that is successful. Right.
Great. So thank you so much, Ravi. And so Tim and Ravi, I know we have 10 more minutes, but I have questions coming in. Some of them have sent direct questions to me, and then I have questions in the Q&A panel. So the question from Paul is, this is to Tim, and I think Tim, you already answered this in some form, but the question is, could Tim talk about SuneraTech's key differentiators that led to Tim's decision to have SuneraTech lead Meritor's cloud journey?
Yeah, no, I mean, we went through a very extensive, Ravi can attest to this, RFP process. I mean, we included a number of different firms, large and small, and ultimately got very comfortable that SuneraTech had the right combination of the different attributes that I referred to previously that we felt were important to our success. I mean, clearly, again, one of the things I touched on was the ecosystem. I mean, Sunera has a very close partnership with Oracle, but again, that flexibility, to me, the different dimensions of flexibility, if I were to kind of call out one, was kind of the differentiator in my mind, straddling art and science, really the collaborative nature, and then the contract flexibility, all of those things kind of bundled up together, as well as all of the other capabilities and experience. But that flexibility kind of bundle, if you will, is really what I would say was the differentiator from our perspective.
Wow, that's great. So Ravi, the next question is from Saul, and he's asking if there is one thing that a CIO should consider, as their top priority while selecting a vendor for cloud migration, what would that be?
Partner skin in the game. I think, like Tim mentioned, a lot of CIOs don't have a clarity. They know the direction is right, but they don't know the destination. And sitting there trying to figure out a destination is difficult. But because the train has left the station, the market is moving to cloud, and there are native digital competition coming from native digital company who's born in cloud. So I would say, given that the skin in the game and and being flexible enough to figure things out throughout the journey, I think so. That's probably one thing you should look for. What's partner skin in the game?
Great. So Tim, the next question is from Dave, and he asked, did you face any challenges with the culture while you're migrating to cloud?
Not, I would say no. If the question is really specific to the Meritor culture, I would say no, because again, when I was talking about our journey going back to all the way back to 2007, I think over time we've introduced things gradually, a number of different cloud applications, again, initially small, then building up to enterprise, and then and we again always focused so much on the business imperatives and how whatever we were doing was going to be a facilitator or an enabler relative to responding to business needs, that we really didn't encounter resistance. And the other thing that was really helpful relative to that also is all of those, some of those big data center moves. I mentioned we consolidated the company-owned data centers with EDS that became HP, and then we moved out of HP to AT&T, which became IBM, and then we moved out of IBM and into the OCI environment. Fortunately, all of those moves were executed quite well, and we didn't disrupt the business in the process. So, the business developed a lot of trust over that time horizon, such that we were given a pretty long leash from that standpoint and didn't really have any significant cultural hurdles. The other thing is that influences that as well is, and something I don't think I mentioned in the key business imperative question earlier revolves around innovation. I mean, you do have a lot of business leaders that get it. They're pushing Industry 4.0, smart factory type initiatives, and it's really important to have the right technical foundation in place in order to support those types of innovation initiatives. And if you've got too much legacy technology in your portfolio, it's going to be very, very difficult to be flexible or agile enough, or even have the technical compatibility in order to support those types of transformational initiatives.
Wow. Thanks, Tim. Raghav, just to add to what Tim just said, I think I must give credit to Meritor, the entire team, in fact. I think the characteristics that Meritor has, which I don't see too often, is they have an extremely strong technical capability, leadership to all the way to the bottom of the team. Extremely strong technical capability. They get it. Significant collaboration. Very rarely I see the level of collaboration across various pillars is very rare to find. And most importantly, the culture of trust, where they treat the partner as part of the extension of their internal team, is something that I, having spent so many years with Meritor, never felt that, for a single day that I, being transparent about how we operate and, telling the news in the way it is, because we have that trust. I think these are the three characteristics I've seen as an organization that Tim owns as a leadership. But I think a lot of credit goes to the leadership that he has built over a period of time that brings this. It won't be such a complex thing of complete lift and shift, requires that level of understanding, right?
Yeah. Wow. So I have 19 more questions to go, and I know we are left with only 5 minutes. So once again, there are a lot of questions around, how can you help me with my ZCCM strategy? Can ZCCM be tailored for my organization? And they're given like some, set of applications and things like that. So everyone on the call, thank you so much for those questions. Like Ravi mentioned, we will be extremely happy to answer all these questions around the framework and how it can be done. We once again request you to send all these questions as an email to zccm@suneratech.com. So that's the email ID, and we will be happy to help each one of you. But so Ravi and Tim, I think I will have to do a rapid fire round now, because we have many questions, and we'll try to see we can get as many of them as answered. So Ravi, coming back to you, there is a question that says, can ZCCM be constructed without a managed services contract? And what is the shortest time duration to do this migration?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. Managed services is not necessary. Number two, the time to migrate depends on the application under migration. So if it's a small application, a database that needs to be migrated can be done in as short as 4 weeks window.
Perfect. Tim, the next question is to you. Now that you are 100% migrated to cloud, what is the next steps at Meritor? What are you looking at as your innovation curve? What is the next big initiative?
Where we've been focusing now is really, along the way, we've constructed a Meritor digital framework, something that really aligns to Meritor specifically. I mean, everyone that's participating today has probably seen various cuts of digital frameworks that McKinsey or others will put out, but we thought it was important to work with our business and construct one that really resonated with Meritor and the business leaders specifically. And so what we've really been focusing on at this point is really looking at the different pillars of that Meritor specific digital transformation framework and identifying the initiatives that we want to move forward, the transformational initiatives that we want to move forward and prioritize. And now that we're in a position to, with the right technology enablers in place, to do so. So that's really been where we put the bulk of our focus. And then clearly in the current time frame, a lot of crisis management, because none of us saw this coming to this extent. So everybody's dealing with this massive as best we can in the present time frame.
Great. So Tim, the next question is also for you. What are the words of wisdom that you would want CIOs to take away from this webinar?
Regardless of where you are in the journey, it's important to stay focused and move. I mean, you can't stand still. You've got to move forward. There are a lot of creative ways to do this that do oftentimes self-fund and don't require upfront investments. So I would encourage folks that are participating to really explore those opportunities further. If financial aspects are one of the things that's holding you back the most, to explore the art of what's possible and continue to move forward.
Great. I'm taking up one last question. I know we're about time. So this question is from Hannah White, and her question is, Ravi and Tim, I loved the whole webinar. It was very informative. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. My question is to Ravi. Can the invoicing be delayed beyond the migration window?
Yes, invoicing can be delayed beyond the migration window. And yes, we've done that in few cases. Answer is yes. Perfect.
So Tim, Ravi, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Post this webinar, we will be sending out an email to you with a link for the recording of this whole webinar. Feel free to share it in your community and other CIOs and your friends. Like I mentioned, please do drop in an email if you have any further questions, and we will be happy to answer all of them. Tim, thank you so much. It was really great interacting with you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ravi.
My pleasure, Raghav. And I would like, before we sign off, just to give a quick shout out to a couple colleagues that I believe are participating, Todd Roney and Anil Gar. who have been instrumental in terms of their leadership in terms of our journey thus far. So thank you, Todd and Anil.
Phenomenal.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everyone.